Yeah. And what do you think should be done about it?
Well, I think the first thing is we need to get rid of the globalist government. That's one of the first things that we need to do. We need to almost start again. And the biggest thing of that is actually we need to return to our Christian roots.
I mean, I came over on a boat.
You came over on a boat?
From Ireland. I'm from Ireland. I came over on a boat.
Okay.
And we went to work when we got here. We didn't leave off the country. And this has gone on this place again. I can understand why people are really upset. And it's not about being racist.
Yeah.
It's not.
What,
I'm Irish myself. You know what I mean?
yeah. And what do you think the issues are then?
It's just get rid of Keir Starmer and you'll have no issues.
Okay.
Get rid of him. He's just not. He's not good for the country. Letting all this happen. It's just not. I'm not saying it shouldn't be held. Of course it should be held. But the way they're going about it is not.
Well. When a single hotel becomes the symbol of everything wrong with your immigration policy, you know you've got a problem bigger than a double-decker bus stuck in a phone booth. Welcome back to British Tribune, where we unpack the political disasters that keep Britain's politicians awake at night. Hit the subscribe, like and share button in order to have daily breaking news today. We're diving into the Epping saga that's turned a quiet Essex town into the epicenter of Labour's immigration nightmare. And trust me, this story has more twists than a pretzel factory. The Bell Hotel in Epping has become Labour's kryptonite, a 210-room reminder that sometimes the best-laid plans of mice and ministers go spectacularly wrong. When your own Treasury Minister is doing verbal gymnastics on national television while 1,000 protesters clash outside a single building, you're not dealing with a policy hiccup, you're staring down the barrel of a full-blown political crisis. Let's set the scene, shall we? Picture this. You're Keir Starmer, you've spent months promising to fix the immigration mess left by the Tories, and suddenly one hotel in Essex becomes the poster child for everything that's still broken. It's like trying to renovate your house while it's actively on fire, and the fire brigade keeps asking for your building permits. The whole powder keg exploded when Hadish Kebetu, a 38-year-old Ethiopian man who'd arrived in Britain just 8 days earlier via Channel dinghy, was charged with sexually assaulting a schoolgirl. 8 days. That's barely enough time to figure out how the taps work, let alone integrate into British society. The timing couldn't have been worse for Labour if they'd planned it themselves. Suddenly, the Bell Hotel wasn't just accommodation. It was a lightning rod for every frustration, every fear, and every failure of the immigration system rolled into one convenient target. Local residents went from quietly grumbling about increased traffic to organizing protests that would make a football riot look like a tea party. The response from Epping Council was swift and unanimous, voting to demand the government shut the hotel down faster than you can say "not in my backyard." When a council votes unanimously on anything, you know the political winds have shifted from gentle breeze to full-scale hurricane. These aren't radical activists or political extremists. These are local councillors who probably spend most of their time arguing about parking restrictions and bin collection schedules. But here's where it gets really interesting. Labour's response to this crisis has been about as effective as a chocolate fireguard. James Murray, bless his diplomatic heart, deployed the classic political non-answer when pressed about why the government hasn't listened to local demands. I'm not going to comment on specific cases, but I do understand people's frustration. It's the political equivalent of saying thoughts and prayers while the building burns down around you. Murray's acknowledgement that people have a right to protest while condemning criminal violence is textbook fence-sitting that satisfies nobody. It's like being asked whether you prefer tea or coffee and responding with a detailed analysis of beverage consumption patterns in post-industrial societies. Technically correct, completely useless. The protests themselves have become a masterclass in modern British political theatre. On one side, you've got local residents, many of them ordinary working families who've watched their quiet town transform into something they don't recognize. Sarah White, one of the protest organizers, put it bluntly, "We won't stop until that hotel is closed." That's not the language of compromise. That's the language of people who've reached their breaking point. On the other side, counter-protesters including pro-Palestine groups and trade unions showed up, turning what was already a tense situation into a full-scale ideological battleground. When you need police from 31 different forces, including officers from Merseyside and Lancashire, to keep the peace in a small Essex town, you've moved well beyond local policing into crisis management territory. The optics are absolutely toxic for Labour. Here's a party that promised competent government, steady leadership, and practical solutions to complex problems. Instead, they're presiding over scenes that look like something from the summer riots, complete with protective fencing and hundreds of thousands of pounds in police overtime costs. Roger Hurst, Essex's police and crime commissioner, didn't mince words when he demanded an urgent meeting with Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. When your own police commissioners are publicly calling for policy changes because the current approach is bleeding their budgets dry, you know the situation has moved from politically embarrassing to operationally unsustainable. The timing couldn't be worse for Starmer personally. Just as he's preparing to meet Donald Trump in Scotland, he's dealing with protests that play directly into Trump's sealed borders narrative. Trump's been crowing about securing America's borders and urging Europe to follow suit. Having your own immigration policy literally burning on television screens while you're trying to build international relationships is diplomatic nightmare fuel. The Conservative response has been predictably opportunistic but undeniably effective. Chris Philp's demand that ministers recognize the strength of feeling and shut it down taps directly into public frustration without getting bogged down in policy nuance. Kemi Badenoch's warning about agitators whipping up trouble positions the Tories as the reasonable voice calling for closure before things get worse. But here's the really uncomfortable truth that nobody in government wants to acknowledge. The protesters have a point. When Maureen Chapman, a 73-year-old grandmother, says she feels under threat and worries about her grandchildren's safety, that's not xenophobia. That's a human response to a situation that feels out of control. The polling numbers tell the story that Labour desperately doesn't want to hear. Immigration has overtaken the economy to become voters' second biggest concern after the NHS, with 49% putting it in their top 3 issues. That's a 7-point jump since May, and every day the Bell Hotel stays in the headlines, those numbers are going to climb higher. The Home Office's response reads like a press release written by someone who's never actually visited Epping. Boasting about reducing hotel numbers from 400 to 210 while promising to close them all by the end of Parliament sounds impressive until you realise that 210 hotels still means tens of thousands of people in temporary accommodation with no clear integration plan. The promise to close hotels by the end of this Parliament is politician speak for some time in the next 5 years. Maybe, if we're lucky and nothing else goes wrong. For residents of Epping dealing with daily protests and police cordons, that timeline feels about as reassuring as a weather forecast for next decade. What makes this whole situation so politically toxic is that it combines Labour's biggest vulnerabilities into one perfect storm. Their immigration policy looks chaotic, their response to public concerns seems tone-deaf, and their ministers appear completely out of their depth when pressed for actual solutions. The Bell Hotel has become Labour's albatross, a constant reminder that good intentions don't automatically translate into good outcomes. Every day it remains open, every protest that unfolds outside its doors, every uncomfortable ministerial interview it generates, reinforces the narrative that this government talks a good game but can't deliver results when the pressure's on. For Starmer, this isn't just about one hotel in Essex anymore. It's about whether his government can handle a crisis without making it worse, whether they can balance compassion with competence, and whether they can govern a country that's clearly losing patience with politics as usual. The residents of Epping aren't asking for the impossible. They're asking for their concerns to be heard and acted upon. The longer Labour ignores those voices, the louder they're going to get, and the more politically damaging this becomes. What do you reckon? Is the Bell Hotel crisis a genuine security concern or political opportunism gone mad? Are Labour out of their depth on immigration? Or are they just dealing with an impossible situation? Let me know in the comments below. Hit that like button if you want more unfiltered political analysis, and subscribe to British Tribune for daily updates on the stories that really matter. Because while the politicians play their games, real people in real communities are dealing with the consequences, and somebody needs to tell their story.